That's great.
Y'all ready?
Hey, go back
Yes.
and just text me.
It is 6 o'clock. We are going to call this recessed meeting to order. Alderman Doc Harris is here with us via phone, so all 7 of the Board of Aldermen are in attendance. Just a quick note before we start with the pledge and the prayer. The item on Elm Street and Robinson PUD is tabled at the request of the applicant and will be heard on February 6th. So if you're here on that one, it's not going to be heard tonight. If you want to leave, you're not going to hurt our feelings. If you want to stay, please do. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew. We're going to call the meeting to order, and this is a recessed meeting, just so everybody understands what that means. Our regular meeting was last Tuesday. We did hold the meeting, but these items that we thought needed public input, we held off so y'all could safely attend. Obviously, a lot of you wanted to attend, so I'm glad we did. So we'll be starting with item 23 on the agenda you picked up. But before we do that, if you would stand, we're going to say the pledge and then follow that with a prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Miller, would you lead the invocation?
Thank you, man. Heavenly Father, once again, Lord, we come and we say, I thank you for this day. And now, Lord, we actually, as we go forward today to look at the welfare and the business of this city, that we pray, Heavenly Father, whatever decision that we might make tonight, that you'll be pleased and satisfied. We thank you, Lord, for watching over the citizen during this inclement weather. We just thank you, Lord, for just all of your many different blessings. Continue, Lord, to bless our souls where they might be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, starting on item 23, G, if you want to start coming up, this is something new we're doing, and I'm glad there's a lot of people here to hear this. Alderman Miller had asked me if we might have an end-of-year wrap-up from each department, so the Board of Aldermen and the citizens in particular could understand what each department does. So tonight, Gia, the Director of Economic Community Development, is going to give a brief summary of her department through the year, and she'll be followed by Lee Germany with Public Works. And then the next meeting, we'll do another couple of departments. So, Gia, if you want to get started.
Okay, can you hear me?
The mic may not be on. It's on. Okay, we're good.
Okay, great. So we're going to talk about what happened in community and economic development over the last year in 2023. There are certain things that are covered under community economic development that includes grants, tourism for the city, our mobile app and website, which is also another tourism driver, our U.S. EPA Brownfields program, community engagement, and then one of the topics that, one of the things I've been working on was my professional community and economic developer certification, which I received early in 23. I also assisted with the YMCA land donation, which was approximately $1 million. Under grants, we were awarded 13 grants in 2023, totaling almost $2 million in funding. And those grants covered tourism, recreation, the environment, economic development, healthy food access, arts and culture, and downtown revitalization. Under tourism, we hold quite a few events throughout the year from the city. I know there's a lot of events in the city. Not all of them are led by the city. These are the ones that we focus on. Excel by 5 Touch a Truck, which is a family event for families with young children. The Hernando Farmers Market, the Children's Health Fair, which is an annual event. The Hernando Water Tower 10K Race, and Dickens of a Christmas. We cannot put on those events without volunteers and sponsors. And throughout the year, we had more than 75 volunteers in the city that helped us host and put on those events to make sure that they were supported properly. And 37 sponsors also supported the events financially, totaling $67,000 in funds. Under Excel by 5, that is a coalition that we have here in Hernando that I lead. With many different community partners, including those in the healthcare community, our child care centers, the library, the DeSoto County Board of Education, and others who focus on families with young children. And we host different things that benefit families with young children because we want them to succeed when they start school at kindergarten. So this is ages 0 to 5. In the early part of the year, in January and February, we held a 6-week primetime reading time program, which is for young children to strengthen families and communities through the humanities. We offer a free meal and door prizes, and those are secured with grants and sponsors. We also have lots of volunteers that help us with that event. Touch a Truck had over 500 visitors. 20 businesses participated. We also had to secure food for the community, and lots of volunteers assisted with that. The POP program is a Power of Produce program to get kids to eat healthy at an early age. The program costs $3,000 a year, and those are secured funds with different sponsors every year. We have been holding that program for about the last 7 years. The Children's Annual Health Fair is at the Farmers Market. We work with our local hospitals, local health state agencies, and other resources here in DeSoto County for families with kids. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library is our early literacy initiative. And also, one of the other things I don't have listed on here about Excel by 5 is it is a workforce development program because it's cradle to career. We know that it's very important to get our kids ready for the first day of school. If we can prepare them, especially with early literacy, they have a better chance of succeeding in school, and we want them to be productive citizens when they graduate. So with our early literacy program, we currently have 622 active children in the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, and over the last 12 months, another 652 graduated. They graduate at year 5 on their 5th birthday. Through that initiative, we also disperse an additional 1,500 books throughout the year through our community events, and those go to anyone in the community that comes to participate in Hernando, so they don't have to be a resident. For that early literacy program, it costs us about $19,000 a year. That is secured with sponsorships and grants. The Water Tower 10K race is held in the fall, and that's a health tourism event. So we attract a different audience for this, and through this event in '23, we had 488 runners from 46 different cities and 9 states. To be able to host the event, we have to do that with lots of sponsors. 21 sponsors stepped up to the plate to help support the event, and we secured $28,000 just for that race. $20,000 of those funds that we received that day go directly into our Dolly Parton Imagination Library 10K fund at the Community Foundation, and that's what pays for all of our books. The Hernando Farmers Market is a huge tourism driver for the city, and it benefits our community through quality of life as well as all of our local downtown businesses. That is held 28 Saturdays of the year from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. Our staff is there at 6:30 a.m. and stays until 2. Last year, we had $600,000 in sales that came through the market. The newest number that I have just received from our data is we did over $700,000 in sales last year just within those 6.5 months. Those funds do not come to the farmers market. We are not receiving that benefit. How we, as a city, receive the benefit is that those dollars go directly to the farmers and the vendors, and then they're spread throughout the community. Crafters also do pay sales tax, and they are going to be utilizing our new sales tax that we have in our system, that it will go directly into the city's tax instead of where they reside, which is how it has been around the state. We also have a few other grants that we do with this. The Double Up Bucks program is our SNAP grant, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We have been very successful in this. We did about $4,000 in SNAP benefits, so we double those in grant dollars. Again, all of those funds go back to the farmers and vendors, which get circulated back into our community. And this year we had a very new program with the Mississippi Department of Health. It was the Prescription RX program. We partnered with Trinity Health Center. They identified 10 patients that were low income with very bad health outcomes. They were allowed to get a regular medical prescription as well as a farmer's market prescription, which gave them dollars to buy fruits and vegetables at our farmer's market. So it benefited us financially throughout the community as well as improved their overall health. We also offer senior and Children's Day activities, and we had 26 Saturdays secured with entertainment. This is a very big tourism driver for the city, and all of our local businesses are now opening up their shops earlier. They are seeing more foot traffic, and they are driving sales in their businesses, which is good for our sales tax revenue. Dickens of a Christmas ends off our year. It's a holiday event, and we partnered with a new company called Placer AI. They're a geofencing company. We were able to determine, because we do not have any entrance and exit points, so it's very hard for us to determine the foot traffic that we receive in the city, but they were able to ping cell phones that were here during those hours. And we had 11.8 thousand people that attended the event, and those are only the ones with cell phones. That does not include any of the children that came to participate in any of the activities. This also created 17 new part-time jobs over the weekend, which our businesses had to hire on just so they could handle the additional foot traffic that came through their doors. So again, that it increases their sales and it increases our sales tax revenue. We try to do something new each year, which keeps it nice and fresh. This year, we included a new ghost tour at the Spring Hill Cemetery. The new DeSoto Family Theater had a family event at 1 Memphis Street. The event is growing. We partnered with the Memphis Fire Museum, and they brought in one of their famous fire trucks to be in our vintage car area. And this year, we also worked with the Hernando Parks and Recreation Foundation to create a new beer garden, which they are going to do again next year. All the funds that they raise go back to help our Parks Department. More than 20 activities and programs were scheduled throughout the day, and that event is also secured with sponsors and grants. Just the sponsors alone, we had 23, and that was over $30,000 in sponsorship funds. Community Development oversees the website and our mobile app. Last year, we went through a new redesign of our website. We took the feedback from our aldermen and our elected officials, as well as the public, to make it a more user-friendly desktop and mobile app. And I think everybody's liking the smart buttons. We also increased our number of users on our mobile app from 500 to 2,000, and we've been able to track over 42 zip codes. So public events are being added regularly to that mobile app. USA EPA brownfields are under community development. We were awarded $409,000 from the US EPA. In '22, this award will continue for 4 years or until all funds are used. We are working with 7 different property owners right now to help them assess the properties for redevelopment and revitalize the downtown. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So we're going to continue to look for opportunities that create and enhance a safe, livable, and vibrant community for residents, businesses, and visitors.
Thank you, Gia. And I would tell you to thank all of your employees that help you, but since you're a department of one, thank you. Until you can get that part-timer hired that the board approved for you. But thanks for all you do. And for all of you out there, if you don't have the Hernando app, go to your app store and get it. It's a free app. And while Lee's getting set up, Lee Germany is the Director of Public Works, and he has put together a PowerPoint presentation to kind of talk about what they did last year. Generally speaking, the public doesn't know much about public works until they are out of water or have a sewer backup. So I kind of wanted everybody to understand what they do and how much work they do to keep us in water. So are you ready, Lee?
I'm ready.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to be. So, like the mayor said, I'm Lee Germany. I'm the Public Works Director. I'm going to go over a few things here. First up is going to be our work order totals for the year. This is broken down by department in our department. But I just want to let everybody know this is in no way encompasses all the work that we do per year. This is just stuff that customers and have called in about, or we've seen. We've made a work order to hold ourselves accountable. But that's our work order totals for the year. I won't go through those, but you know, I would estimate probably 2,800 would be close to what we had. So as you know, we have 3 water plants. We have East Parkway, we have Jaybird, and then we have Lauder Road. And these are our production totals per day. So, and then I got some numbers from our water operator, Neil, just the other day. East Parkway is producing about when we had our faucets drip and all the cold weather, it was up to over 2 million gallons a day. So it's not under strain by any means. It can handle it, and but I just want to make everybody aware that that's a lot of water coming out of the ground each day, that we're consuming here in Hernando, and that's on average. I mean, it could be over 2.5 million. Everybody's watering their lawns and stuff like that. So water plant updates. This year we put all of our water plants and our tanks under a maintenance contract, which is a company that comes in, inspects our tanks, puts us on a painting schedule, a washout schedule, all sorts of preventative maintenance that needs to be done for those. We also painted 5 tanks and water towers and ground storage tanks this year. If you'll notice, the elevated tank at East Parkway has been painted. It's got a tiger up there and a new logo. And then we also painted our Jaybird tanks. You can see it's got a pretty scroll logo on there. And then also our Lauder Road tanks. So I don't have the schedule in front of me, but here in the next couple of years, we'll be painting all of our other tanks too, our standalone tanks like over on South Street and so on and so forth. Service line project. So the EPA has mandated all water systems in the United States to identify service lines, and a service line is basically coming from the city main to the meter, from the meter to the house, to determine what kind of materials those are, see if they're lead or copper, and if we need to do anything in the future as far as changing those. Anything built before 1987, we had to dig those up, so it ended up being 1,600 total to be investigated. We completed 3 interior washouts per recommended maintenance information. Also, we installed SCADA monitoring systems on Jaybird and our Lauder Road plants, I didn't put this on there, but along with our standalone tanks. So SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. So basically, if there's any type of problem with these plants overnight, during the day, holidays, weekends, it sends us a text alert, a call even, and says, hey, need to go check this out. So it's really been a lifesaver for us because while we do check them 7 days a week, once a day, things pop up, we don't know about it. So this will give us that early warning where we need to go check it out. So it's paid off a good bit. Water plants continued. So we ran a new water main this year, basically from the Field Book subdivision past Johnson Road out there. That allowed us to make 160 new connections available at our Jaybird water plant. Got our capacity up on that according to the health department regulations. This year we have, last year, I'm sorry, Jaybird Road, we have a new ground storage tank, new service pumps, new aerators, expanded our water plant, and that will basically double our capacity level there. In progress and nearing completion, both of those. And then East Parkway, we're adding a new aerator so the wells can be run simultaneously. So what an aerator does is basically it lowers the pH in the water, and you've got to have the capacity on the aerator versus the wells. So if we run 3 wells at one time, the pH would be too high. So we have to have another aerator there so we can pump water out of the ground faster. And all that work has been accepted, awarded, and awaiting contract work to begin. Water account updates. That's one of our smart read meters right there. We can hook a laptop up to it and read it, and we can also trend histories on it. If a customer has a concern about water usage, or we have a concern about water usage, we can trend that by the minute on water usage. But anyway, we increased our water tap fees and our irrigation meter fees. Meters we changed over from manual to radio read, which is what I was talking about with the laptop, where we can read them on a drive-by system. We changed out 405 of those. We had 849 new water accounts. That doesn't necessarily mean new houses built. That just means new customers changed hands, houses sold, new houses were built. We had 27 new irrigation customers. We brought utility locating back in-house. We had 6,248 locates last year. And we also upgraded our locating software. We can now take pictures of the work before and after. So if there's ever a question of who's at fault with a line strike, we can go back to those pictures and verify that stuff. So that's been a really big asset to us. Sewer and storm drains. So we spent a lot of money last year in storm drains. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be done. We spent $180,000 and some change on repair and replacement needed throughout the city, but our budget amount was only $75,000. So we really poured the money into storm drains last year because it absolutely needed it. It was stuff that couldn't be avoided. It was roads that were, in danger, yards, houses, stuff like that. Of course, constantly, efforts to identify rainwater infiltration in the city sewers. That's a big issue for us. Here's this term again, SCADA. We installed that on 18 of our lift stations, and we intend and have it budgeted to install it on the remaining lift stations this year. We cannot control anything with the SCADA on our lift stations, but it does give us that early warning, hey, something's wrong, something's stopped up, something's not flowing, something's wrong with the motor, and we can send a technician or ourselves out to go check it out. NRCS projects, I'm sure you guys have seen them. That's where they clean the ditch banks up, put the riprap in there, make it more aesthetically pleasing, but also protect our utilities that run across those areas. The city's portion of that last year was $273,000. The two that we did was the creek adjacent to Walgreens, and then the ditch north of Fort Creek Parkway, and we have more planned for this year. We had a contractor come in and camera every piece of sewer in Edgewater subdivision. We identified some problem areas and worked with city engineers and contractors to come up with a plan and a solution to the small issues we have over there. Street updates, I know you're all familiar with those, but I put them on here just because it's a big deal. We microsealed Brody Road. The road's paved and striped. It'll be Vaden, Industrial, the police station parking lot, Center Street, West Robinson, Biloxi Cove, Banks Cove, Dogwood Hollow, Trapper Drive, and then, I don't know if everybody's noticed or not, but we limbed up the trees along the off-ramps at Commerce and on-ramps. We raised the canopy up. It looks better. It keeps the limbs out of the guys mowing the grass, and believe it or not, it helps with dead limbs falling and having to clean them up. So we upgraded all of our red lights to LED this year. That was a big thing for us. It's just a light bulb in there on the old style ones, and they don't last 2 months. They may last 6 months. They may last 2 years. So the LEDs are warranted for 10 years. So if anything happens to those, we've got that documented what time we put them all in. We've changed them all in at one time. That way the dates weren't staggered. So if there's ever a problem, we can warranty those LED lights out at no cost to us other than labor. Sanitation updates. So we negotiated an extension of the current solid waste contract. We began implementing back charges for the contract on misses. And I'm pretty impressed with these numbers. The average miss rate dropped 164%. So I think that got their attention. And then the recovery rate in 24 hours increased to 99%. I don't think you can ask for any better than that. Brush, it was a big year for brush. We had a couple bad storms this year. So just regular brush, the city took 912 loads to the dump. That's 36,032 cubic yards taken to Star Landing Rubbish Pit. We had a ice storm. The city cleared 29 trees from the roadway, and then the terrible tornado, straight line wind, whatever it was, on Father's Day. We had to hire a contractor on that. The contractor took 223 loads to the dump, and then the city took 110 loads on top of that. So that's a significant amount of trees and limbs and rubbish that fell. So this year we added a field engineer. The field engineer does a lot of stuff that we'll get into on the next slide, but 2 years ago we opted in for this unit that you see the technician holding there. It's called an R2. It's made by Trimble. It's survey grade survey equipment, so we can mark all of our manholes, water meters, water valves, water mains, anything that we dig up or see that we can mark. So the field engineers also negotiated franchise agreements. We're not too long ago doing in a meeting here. Oversees all boring and excavation permits, and then the water and sewer mapping. I have a link there, but we'll come back to it. More of the field engineer report. Increased data collection for mapping updates and accuracy on existing infrastructure by working with GIS consultant. New subdivisions, new subdivision construction immediately collected in real time. So what that means is water valves, water meters, like I said before, water mains, sewer mains, anything that's installed in the field by developers and contractors, we were able to collect that stuff real time in all of those subdivisions right there, which is a huge, huge asset. The total number of points collected just this year was 3,945. So 3,945 times somebody had to stand out there with a stick and an iPad and say, all right, collect this point, label it, and send it to our GIS guy. So the amount saved there is what I've got is $32,000. So what that's based off of is the GIS technician that we work with would charge us $8 per point. So at $8 per point at 3,945, that comes up with that $32,000 number. I think that was a pretty good investment on our Trimble equipment. Again, types of points, lift stations, sewer manholes. These are all of those points broken down on what we collected. We collected 10 lift stations in addition to the ones we had already collected, 929 sewer manholes, 961 water mains and valves, 287 fire hydrants, and then water meter locations. That doesn't encompass all that we have. That's just what we collected this year. And you'll see a snapshot there on the right of what it looks like on our field map. The blue lines there are the water mains. The green lines are the gravity sewer mains. There's not any red lines on there. If there were red lines on there, it would be for our sewer force mains. If you zoom in on that a little more on a live computer, it'll show you the water meters, water valves, all of that good stuff. More field engineer, City of Hernando boring, trenching, and excavation ordinance implementation this year. That was huge for us. Again, identified franchise agreements, contract terms, and financial incentives with all city utility partners, Atmos, Energy, all of those guys. Negotiated new contracts with Comcast and C-Spire, allowing the city to collect franchise fees and permitting fees. Developed a permitting program, 92 total projects. Those are the folks that we have the projects through. And we also enforce CCTV video scope post and prior on all boring operations now that are within a certain range of the city utilities. Working with developers to ensure best practices in new construction development, enforce construction specifications. Basically, we tightened everything up.
One quick note, if you have a blue Subaru around back, it needs to be moved. It's blocking the fire engine from getting out.
Let's see who stands up.
Go ahead, Lee.
So, more field engineer report. This year we purchased a scanner and plotter for our blueprints. Basically, where we can take all of our existing blueprints, digitize those on a public works drive, and make copies for contractors, so on and so forth, for our maps and our guys out in the field. This is another really, really nice tool that the city engineer and our GIS technician helped us out with. What you're looking at is a snapshot of the city cemetery, where our ladies up front who handle day-to-day operations with that can see what's available. We can show customers what's available, customers and families what's available. They can search on there to see family members, to be closer to those family members. And there's also a legend on the left-hand side there that say available, future. And then the city engineer also was able to plat, I guess, new areas there to the left that you can kind of see by that tree for future use. So we've expanded it a good bit too there. And then that's it. 2024 is off to a great start with Public Works. A few missing there, and a few have been added since then. So, anybody have any questions or anything?
Does the board have any questions? That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah,
That's
and
a lot done this year.
I do, there's 1,000 notes and comments I could make about the work y'all do, but it's just this last week, all the things y'all did were incredible.
That's a lot.
But I was just thinking about the GIS stuff, and I know it probably happened many times, but I remember you said, hey, there were these, I called you about these guys that were trying to find their water meter because their water pipe burst. And you said you got out there, and they were out there trying to shovel the whole front yard, trying to find it, and you walked up with your phone and were able just to find it immediately.
That is such an asset for us, in that exact thing, because, when we had the bad snowstorms 3 or 4 years ago, we really struggled, and it's a terrible feeling seeing somebody's house being flooded and you not know where the meter is exactly, and you spend an hour out there looking for it, you know, and that's worth it right there for me.
But thank you for all you and your guys.
Yes,
and
sir.
ladies
Thank y'all.
do.
Thank you.
All right, I think we all learned something today. Next, we're going to do one more fun thing before we get to work. There are a lot of events that happen around town, and a lot of time we don't know who's responsible for these events. And we decided that we want to start awarding a community service award for these people who do things behind the scenes that are important to you as citizens, just so you can know who's out there working on your behalf and volunteering. So tonight, the first Community Service Award for the first quarter of 2024 is in honor of Carolyn Young. Ms. Young, where are you? I know you're here. Come on up. So if y'all have been to the Veterans Parade or participated in the Veterans Parade, you can thank Ms. Young. She is the person behind the scenes, mostly behind the scenes, sometimes out in front, but she is the one who makes this happen. It's an incredible event for the city, and we just want to recognize you, Carolyn. Now, can I give you this?
Thank you.
Will you let Ms. Gia take your picture? Y'all, Miss Carolyn did not want to be recognized. And I think that shows what kind of person she is.
A lot of people make this parade happen.
I know, yep. And we'll recognize some of them later, but you're kind of the leader. We thought you were deserving of the first award, so thank you for all you do, Miss Carolyn. Okay, we will get to the planning agenda items. Item 26.
Yes, sir. The first two items on the agenda tonight are both appeals from the Planning Commission's decision for variance applications. The first is PL 1775. The request was from Hilltop Body Shop, and the request for variance was concerning their required buffer yard between the two zoning districts. The property is located at 2181 Highway 51 North and was recently rezoned to M1. The property is currently in a certificate of development for design review. The required buffer yard between M1 and A zoning is a 40-foot buffer yard and a 10-foot, 10-foot fence. The applicant's proposing a 20-foot buffer yard and a 6-foot fence. All the required plantings within this buffer yard are proposed to be installed, but they're wanting to narrow the required width of the buffer yard to allow for the parking area in the rear. As always with the variance, the 4 criteria for approval or denial, and I'll read this once, even though it's for both applications. The special conditions and circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land, structures, or buildings involved, and they're not generally applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same district. That the literal enforcement of the provisions of these standards would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the same district under the terms of this ordinance. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant and are not based on economic considerations, and granting this variance would not confer on the applicant any special privilege that's otherwise denied by this ordinance to other land structures or buildings in the same district. The applicant did provide responses to each of those questions, and as I mentioned, generally speaking, they're wanting their available area for parking in the rear to be expanded to the full width of their property, and the 40-foot buffer yard they felt would be an encumbrance on that. The application was heard by the Planning Commission and was denied with a vote of 5-2. They did appeal the decision within the appropriate timetable, and we re-advertised the hearing for the 16th, which was, of course, tabled until tonight due to the weather. I did include proposed motions in your staff report to approve, deny, or table for the application, and I did include site maps, and there's a narrative in there that shows the buffer yard before and after, if the variance is approved or not. It's my understanding the applicant did meet with a neighbor who was in opposition to the first meeting, and they've come to some sort of compromise. I'll let him speak to that here in just a second. But with that concludes my report, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Also, isn't there some kind of natural buffer there too, like a hill or something?
There is a topography change between the two properties.
What other questions does the board have? If there are none, would the neighbor like to speak?
Chance Walker's here with IPD representing the application tonight.
Good evening, Chance Walker, 3221 Magnolia Leaf Drive, Hernando. We're here requesting the variance for 20-foot buffer instead of 40-foot because of the additional area in the back for turn radiuses and also parking. And also a 6-foot fence instead of a 10-foot fence. Earlier, in the Planning Commission meeting, we did have one opposition, which was the neighbor. And since then, they have agreed upon what is shown on the site plan with a 6-foot fence and a 20-foot buffer. A reason behind why we're wanting this variance is if you look at the future comprehensive plan, it is going light industrial out there. It's light industrial across the street. We're having to have this 40-foot buffer because of the ag land around us. So if it does go light industrial in the future, the lots to the north will not be required to have a buffer, and he'll be stuck with 40-foot surrounding his property, which is, it's a lot of property will be unused. So that's why we're here requesting this variance. He's willing to put in all the still required landscaping. There's an existing berm. It's anywhere from 11 to 12 feet in height. I have existing contours here if you'd like to see that for evidence, but there is a berm there, so there's already a natural buffer.
Are there any questions for Mr. Walker, who represents the owner? Is there anyone
Mayor.
else? Yes.
Hey, Mayor, I do have a question. It's a little difficult for me to clearly understand what's being said, but what is the reasoning to lower the fence from 10 feet to 6 feet?
Mr. Walker, would you like to answer?
Sure. I mean, just for logical reasons, the price, and number two, there is already an existing berm. The berm is anywhere from 11 to 12 feet, depending on where you're at on the property. And adding an additional 10-foot fence, we just don't see it being necessary. But we're still willing to put up a typical 6-foot black vinyl cyclone fence.
Alderman Harris, did you hear that?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, so the berm is along the west and the north. What about the east side?
So the east side is.
Or the south side?
Yeah, the south side, there is an it's not 11 or 12 feet there. There is still a jump. I mean, it's still a berm. It's not nearly as high as what you see on the west or the north, but he's still willing to maintain the 20-foot buffer, landscaping, and a 6-foot fence.
So you're saying the 6-foot fence on all sides, even the sides that don't have the already 10-foot berm?
Yes, ma'am.
How high would you say that berm is on the south side?
I mean, it's 3 to 4 foot probably tall.
Okay, so the 3 to 4 foot berm added to the 6-foot fence kind of
Yeah,
gets you
it's
to the
roughly
10-foot height.
10 foot. The property itself is a lot lower than the neighbor's existing topography. I mean, drastically lower, within probably 12 feet lower.
Is there anyone else here that wanted to speak on the topic? Any other questions from the board? If not, is there a motion from the board?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the variance to the required buffer zone and fence height as described in the application on the subject property described in the application with the followings A through D.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
I said no.
All right, the next
Mayor.
application.
That one nay.
I got the nay. Yeah, the motion still passed. Thank you.
There is a presentation from Doug in section 2.
The next one to come up is the appeal of denial of PL 1776, which is Longview Point Design Variance. And I believe you're going to go ahead and present first and then have Doug Thornton come up.
Yes, sir, if that's okay. This is PL 1776. It's appealed the decision of the Planning Commission of the denial for the variance of Longview Point's design variance request for a metal facade of their proposed addition. It's 1100 Mackinville Road, and the site has recently received certificate of development approval and construction approval of a parking lot addition that's been completed and approved. There is the same approval or denial criteria as the previous application for variance. Items 1 through 4 are still applicable in this application. And as you see in the rendering, the proposed addition includes a seamless metal facade, which is disallowed by the design regulations. The brick skirt at the bottom is proposed to be 10 to 12 feet tall, and the metal facade, and we have these physical samples here tonight if you'd like to see them, is proposed to be an upgraded metal facade with hidden concealed fasteners. And so Doug can speak more on the technical side of it, but as you see, it's a primary design element of the proposed addition, but overall it would be a small addition with the church as a whole. The supports are proposed to be timbered to offset some of the metal facade. As I mentioned, with the certificate of development approval, there was a 2014 memo attached about the previous addition and the metal facade that was there as a tertiary design element. And it's the opinion of the applicant that this is another tertiary design element and is approvable. I did include the proposed motions to approve, deny, or table in the staff report. And there is a proposed site plan to show you the general location of the addition set well back from Mackinville Road and by Haley Road on the western facade of the building. The applicant provided responses to each of the approval or denial criteria. And as I mentioned, Doug Thornton's here tonight representing the application. It has a rendering and material board in case you'd like to see physical samples. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available if you have any questions, and Doug's here tonight as well.
Any questions for Austin? Okay, Mr. Thornton, would you like to come up and give a brief presentation?
Thank you. Let's keep it very short. Yeah, Doug Thornton, 5289 Cane Ridge Road, Hernando. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and I applaud Hernando's care and diligence in design standards and design materials and all of those things. And we've had many discussions about it, and I understand the hesitancy of metal, and I know the original design ordinance was written with the intent of trying to reduce or even eliminate the prevalent metal building boom from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so I wanted to assure you, this is not your typical metal building siding. We've done a lot of things in the design to mitigate both the impression of the metal building look as well as the actual materials themselves. These are not your 1980 screw-on metal panels that you would see on a warehouse or barn. These are, highly engineered, sealed joints, concealed fasteners. You won't see the screws. They're much more weather tight, much more resilient to temperature fluctuations of 50 degrees in a week like we're having right now. And so, all of those are in consideration, as well as long-term maintenance. They're a 50-year finish warranty on them versus anything we would have to paint, like a fiber cement panel or any of those type of materials. The other thing we've done is we've broken up that facade, both with some accent panels as well as Austin said, the mass timber, the heavy timber brackets. All of that's in a design elements used to break up and, kind of create interest and mitigate, again, the feeling of just a big metal panel wall. So, I don't want to belabor it too much, but I'd be glad to answer any questions or concerns anyone might have on that.
Does anybody on the board have questions or concerns to talk to Mr. Thornton about?
Do you have a picture that shows the entire campus, like the whole building with where the addition's going to be?
I don't think I have in this presentation. I don't know if Austin, you've still had that or not. It's where the circular drive is now. That's where, does this have a pointer on it?
Yes, it may not show
Okay. Well, where the blue shirt person is, that's kind of where that circular drive is, if you've been to the church campus now, and where the playground currently was, and then it goes south from there. So it's on that very south, I guess it'd be the southeast corner. It's probably not even a quarter, probably less than a quarter of the total surface area of the whole campus. So it's just a portion of the front of the,
It's in the fourth or fifth page of the staff report, but it kind of shows.
so that circular drive that's there now is here. That's the front doors that are there now. And
Right.
stuff like that.
But not like a rendering of what it would all look
Of
like?
the whole thing. No, we did not do that. I apologize.
Any other questions?
Doug, so I think this is part of a longer, 10-year, 20-year plan. Are
Right.
y'all going to continue to use this material the whole way through?
I mean, we would probably like to. You know, I think some of it is, just newer materials from what the original ordinances were written about and for, and materials have changed in the last 10, 15 years. Obviously, the way the ordinance is written right now, we'd have to come before the board every time.
And is there a
so-
way to
Right.
prevent that every time?
Right.
Actually, I will say, in the past, even very recently, Mr. Thornton and I have talked about using his expertise and trying to upgrade our ordinances. Alderman Miller and I were both on the board when we adopted the 2003 design guidelines, and that's when I actually had a vote. And I remember when I was casting that vote, much like you said earlier, we were trying to not have Mackingville be concrete block buildings or metal warehouse-looking buildings. And that was our intent, but like you say, there's new building materials out there now. This is obviously not a metal building you're presenting to us, so it could be time for us to work on redoing that. But today, we haven't redone the guidelines, so here you are asking for the variance.
Right.
Energy is another building that's similar like this, the one on
That's right.
51.
So the taupe khaki color is the metal?
The metal, correct.
And what about the off-white underneath it?
Right.
That's the metal as well?
Right, and that's to match, that's so that we can pull some of that existing metal over to keep the color consistency, to tie it together. Because that entry, the new entry we did with the lobby is that same type concealed fastener metal. And so, it's just a way to tie that together visually and architecturally, is the accent colors.
Is that wood?
The brace members are
Yeah,
all wood, yes,
okay.
ma'am.
This material is similar or identical to what is currently on the building?
It's very similar. I think we're looking at a little bit of a different rib pattern versus more of the tight rib pattern. It's got a little more architectural detail to it.
Okay.
And then, of course, it's brick at the lower level where people touch it, see it, come in contact with it, lower maintenance and higher durability there.
What type of roof materials on that?
It's standing seam metal, which is what the existing facility is.
Any other questions? I think the pastor wanted to speak, if I remember correctly.
Wade Stevens, 1675 Shepherd Drive, and also senior pastor at Longview Point Church. Mr. Mayor, I'm not known for brevity, so I'll stick to written comments here.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, yeah. I'm thankful to be with you guys and for you allowing us the time tonight. I would like to say, as a pastor, this kind of local political engagement always makes me a little panicky and nervous. There's always process, and as a group of people, as a leader, you work process. That's how you make progress, and that's how things get done. I know there have been a lot of phone calls and emails and conversations related to this request tonight, and I hope and trust that those have been a charitable reflection of the spirit of our request here tonight and the charitable spirit of our church. Sometimes it's difficult to work within the prescribed process without intentionally or unintentionally coming off as a little insistent. So I hope we've been less than that, to say the least. I do want to reiterate our appreciation for your work. If anyone knows what it's like to make sometimes unappreciated decisions, it's a Baptist pastor. So know that you have our support and appreciation as a congregation. I wrote to the board and to you, Mr. Mayor, after the Planning Commission meeting back in December. I trust that you've received that correspondence. I'm not going to rehash those comments completely, but I would like to summarize the basis for our request or appeal tonight. One, cement board, the hardy board product, as it's more commonly known, is the alternative for us. And personally, and I think as a group, we just like the concealed fastener metal better. Just as plainly as I know how to state it, it just really looks better than what the approved alternative is. It's all, the cement board, the hardy board, is on the approved materials list. We could roll on with that as a product, but I think the end result would be a less aesthetically appealing building than what it might be otherwise with the metal panels that Doug has suggested here tonight. Secondly, I think the spirit of the earlier prohibition against metal, which has been spoken to here tonight, had the exposed fastener, more traditional metal building type in mind. And these materials have advanced a long way in the years since that was passed, and I often see concealed fastener panels used in really well-managed municipalities on very nice-looking buildings. So I'm hopeful that perhaps even in the future that becomes a part of the approved materials list for our town. And thirdly, the maintenance on this panel is a much better outcome. In other words, you put a metal panel up and you're looking at 30 years before maintenance is required. With the approved material, you're looking at 5 to 8 years. 8 years is probably a little optimistic. Now, we want to be good neighbors and we want to maintain our property well, but approving the metal panel gives the city control over what the look of the building is because of the maintenance ability of this metal panel for the next 3 decades. So I know that there may be some others here who want to speak to this, but I'm hopeful for the sake of your time that these represent at least a summarization of our concerns here tonight as a body, and I'm hopeful for some latitude here and fresh perspective on the suitability of this material for our product.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the pastor?
I have a question. So y'all are saying it's either metal or hardy board siding, but couldn't you use brick or some other material that's got good maintenance?
We could. Brick is pretty cost prohibitive in light of what we're trying to do. There are additional buildings that will affect the facade of the campus itself coming in the future that would be better suited to an exclusively brick facade. This would serve as kind of an accent to a main worship center at some point in the future. Note that that's not a commitment on my part, that that's the approach that we want to take at that time. But the 3-phase process that we're trying to work over a period of 10 years, this is 1/3 of that. And this is actually the smallest of the 3 additions that would be made over time. So we sort of see this in the grand scheme of our campus plan as a building that will serve as an accent to the main worship center, not a focal point of the campus itself.
Any other questions? Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that wants to speak on this topic and possibly say something different or add to what's been said? Okay. If not, if there are no more questions or comments, is there a motion from this board?
I'll make a motion to overturn the decision of the Planning Commission and approve a design variance for Longview Point Church as described on the attached exhibits. The subject property is located on the south side of Bahia Road, east of Mackinville Road, more specifically 1100 Mackinville Road, Section 8, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings, A through D.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
And the motion passes. Thank you all very much. Item 28, PL. And if y'all want to leave, we'll take a moment for you too, or you can stay and join us for the next one. Thank you, Doug.
Y'all did for Carolyn.
Mr. Bell, how you been, man? Huh? I'm always landing. I'm flying.
See ya.
We know how many of them are from Longview now.
Yeah. You're about right.
All right. We'll proceed on with PL 1781.
Got Ben gone.
Oh, did Ben go? Okay, we'll wait on Ben.
That's only Springs.
You take the rest of the room.
It's gonna be right on top of it.
He went to get some water or something, I don't know.
Like I ain't had no coffee tonight, do
I
you?
think it's a nice facility.
Yeah, I guess not.
9 bays.
Also, we're gonna wait on Alderman Farmer's return.
And the next item, PL 1781, is a zoning map amendment request for revision to the Edgewater PUD to allow the auto repair facility. There were 3 rezonings on the Planning Commission agenda. This is just more for information for y'all. One was tabled, so it's coming back to the next meeting. One was tabled at the Planning Commission, so it's coming to the very next meeting. So this is the only rezoning on the agenda tonight. This subject property is on the south side of Hollow Springs Road, east of McInvale. It's represented by Jones Davis Engineering. And as I mentioned, this is a rezoning and preliminary development plan approval request to amend the existing Edgewater commercial portion of the PUD to allow for auto repair. The comprehensive plan recommends this area to develop as activity retail, and I included that map in your staff report. The original Edgewater PUD was approved in 1998, and the uses in the commercial district are limited to that of C1. And so auto repair not being in that list of C1 uses is what they're requesting to add to that use. They provided a proposed site plan and building elevations, which would run concurrent with the zoning. So if they wanted to change anything, they have to come back and rezone the property, which is what they're doing tonight to allow for the request for the use. As all rezonings go, there are 3 approval or denial criteria for a rezoning or map amendment, and how this proposed amendment conforms to the general development plan. The existing zoning district classification of property is inappropriate or improper, and what changes, economic, physical, and social, have occurred in the vicinity of the property which weren't anticipated by the general development plan and have changed the area. And the applicant provided 3 responses to each of those. A little bit about the plan in particular. It does have access to city water and sanitary sewer service. And the site plan, as you see, is oriented north to south and is immediately adjacent to the existing commercial building. I believe Birch Realty just moved out, but it's the Birch Realty office is what's immediately adjacent to. The proposed development includes a 9-bay auto repair facility with associated parking. The buffer yard in the rear does include a sanitary sewer main, and so the buffer yard would be required between the commercial district and the residential district of the Edgewater PUD. And they've provided that and a landscape plan as a part of their application tonight. In addition, they did include a photometric plan which would show the light spill, which is typically required during certificate of development, but they went ahead and did it tonight to show where the lights would shine, where they wouldn't, as a part of their request. And the proposed elevations is a brick facade around the entire portion of the building, which preliminarily does appear to meet all the design regulations. And so the bays being oriented east to west were their attempt at limiting some of the sound back to the neighbors back to the south. The applicant, Mr. Jones, is here with the business owner tonight, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions before the applicant comes up?
Also in the rear setback there, is that normal for any type of business? Is an auto business required to have a more of a setback or anything? 'Cause it's pretty close to those houses in the back. Is that normal?
It is normal. It's dictated in the PUD, but it just makes it to the
Yeah, so they could put something else there, it'd be right up on top of them, and, you know, if they did a restaurant or something, it'd be right on top of them as well, right?
Theoretically, yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, he would. I'm Bob Ginn, 8295 Oakwood Lane, Olive Branch. And the business in question here has been a very successful business in South Haven for a number of years. Most of the employees, I think all but one, live in Hernando. And so they wanted to relocate to bring their business here. And I think it's South Haven's loss. They have a very good reputation. They have gone, in my estimation, they have gone above and beyond to try to please everybody. And while they do back up to a residential subdivision, this property was rezoned 27 years ago. So it's always known that there's going to be some kind of commercial project there. Just for fun, I looked up in the census site, and according to the census site, population of Hernando in 27 years ago was around 5,000 people. Today it's almost 18,000, or maybe more than that now, I'm not sure. So things have changed a lot. Holly Springs Road is a major road now. And so this property fronts on Holly Springs Road. It's a very nice-looking brick facade building. I guess you have a picture of it there. The parking lot is landscaped as required. But in the rear, which is where it backs up to the subdivision, there is a 6-foot fence on their property lines already. There's a 10-foot sewer easement, and they propose to build a 3-foot berm on the other side of the sewer easement, plus a 6-foot tall brick fence. So all that's going to be seen from behind is just part of the brick facade of the building. Their working hours are going to be Monday through Friday from 7:30 to 5. So they're not going to be over there making noise on weekends or anything else. They've got an adequate facility. A typical day for them is to service 20 cars. They bring them in, they fix them, they send them out. Anything that's carried over for whatever reason would be parked inside the facility. So there's not going to be a bunch of stuff out in the parking lot. There will be some cars out there, but it won't be any different than any other retail establishment as you drive past it. So I think they've certainly put their best foot forward. Have you got any questions that I can answer?
Any questions?
My biggest concern is the length of the building and the length of the lot, because I pass that lot every day. And having 8 bays, 8 or 9 bays, 9 bays,
9, I think.
y'all are gonna, even if with the 6-foot, with 3-foot berm and a 6-foot fence, you're still gonna be right on top of those people's backyards. They may not see into the parking lot, but it's still gonna be right on top of it, because it seems so close. That 1.3 acres with the length of y'all's building is right back, because that Greenwich, the back of their yards go at an angle. And I mean, y'all have done everything perfect. I mean, as far as the look of the building and everything, it's just my biggest concern is the folks, I mean, there's some retired people that live over on Greenwich. There's people that live there that are concerned about the noise. And what I hate to say is that there's 2 other body shops, one down Mackinville and one down Holly Springs, that has put a really dark, ugly stain on this whole situation.
I agree.
And when you've got 285 homes in a neighborhood all complaining about the noise and all of that, this one's even going to be closer to their yards than the other ones are. And so that's my only concern, because y'all have done everything right. It's just the angle of that property and the way it looks on this, those fences those are small backyards anyway. So their houses are not far from where their fence is. And then you're saying there's only going to be a 10-foot buffer, even though there's going to be a wall.
No. There's a 10-foot easement.
Easement,
Sewer
okay.
easement that we can't touch. So it's,
Right.
I think from the back property line to the building is almost 50 feet.
Okay.
And I mean, all the setbacks have to be met, so, we certainly.
Where will y'all's fence be?
It will be 10 feet from their fence.
Okay, so
There'll be a 3-foot berm after the 10 feet. We can't cover up the sewer easement.
and then the building's 50 feet from their fence?
Yeah, from all the way up. It's about 45, 50 feet.
Okay.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think that was part of Alderman Wickers' concern. And just to clarify, the line that you see, the thick line, is the fence. Their property line is actually that southernmost thin line on the bottom.
and the building itself is only 50 feet wide. And it does sit at a little bit of an angle, so there's not, the very tip corner of the building is going to be, at closest point, is going to be, I think,
Right.
45.
Where
Most of
that,
the building is 50
yeah, where
feet,
that,
right.
those people, everything angles,
Yeah. a
the
little bit.
that street, Greenwich.
Any other questions, concerns? If not, is there anyone else here that wanted to speak on this topic tonight? Okay. Any other questions? It sounds like everybody is through speaking. Any concerns or questions for Bob again while he's up here? If not, can I have a motion?
There's no one speaking opposition to this?
No one to speak in opposition to this tonight? We double check. There seems to be none. Can I have a motion from the board?
Before I make a motion, I want to make a comment. I want your business in Hernando. This is a location that I've had a lot of opposition from the residents that live there. You've done everything perfect. With the building, it looks fine. I want your business in Hernando. But because this lot is so tight and it's right on top of these people's backyards, and these yards are very small, and I've talked to a lot of the residents that right there on Greenwich, I just want to let you know where I stand and that I am their voice. Even though there's no one here for opposition, I still am their voice because I've talked to them. So I'm going to make a motion to deny. The board can decide their own decision on this, but my decision is a motion to deny a rezoning requested by Jones Davis Engineering, representing the owner of the property for preliminary development plan approval to amend the existing PUD for the Edgewater Commercial Subdivision. The subject property is located on the south side of Holly Springs Road, east of Mackingville Road, in Section 20, Township 3, Range 7, based upon the following findings 1 through 3.
There's a motion to deny. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There is a second to the motion. We'll have a roll call vote.
Alderman Robinson?
Aye.
Alderman Wicker?
No.
Alderwoman Ross?
Aye.
Alderman Piper?
Aye.
Alderman Harris?
Oh.
Alderwoman Lynch?
Aye.
Alderman Miller?
Nay.
Okay, so the motion to deny passed.
What was the count?
It was a 4-3.
4 to 3.
Nay, okay, yeah.
So there were 4 aye votes on the motion to deny and 3 nay votes on the motion to deny. So it has been denied. Okay, we will move on to item 29. Will you officially state for the record the tabling of item 29?
Yes, sir. And for the record, item 29, PL 1783, Elm Street and Robinson TUD. The request is to table until the next meeting to give the applicant time to meet with some of the neighbors. So I don't know if that requires board action, but that's what he's.
Okay, we'll just all know that it's tabled until the next board meeting. Thank you. We will move on to item 30, the revision to the board order approving gated access to Chapel Grove PUD.
Yes, sir. As we've mentioned in the past, in 2019, let me get the exact date. The Chapel Grove PUD, PL 1367, was approved April 16th, 2019. And a part of that approval, since the lots exceed 30, 2 ways in and out are required. And so as a condition of the approval of the 2019 PUD, an asphalt road of 30 feet wide, access road 24 feet wide with the permanent gate to be only accessed by emergency service personnel was required. And so phase 2 is close to being platted, and it generated the question about the gate, of what type it was. And so we reached out to the fire department, and we questioned the legality. We've reached out to several opinions through legal avenues, and we've come up with the conclusion that the gate for permanent access to be gated is illegal. And so with that, it's back before us tonight for y'all's opinion and possible vote on to revise that board order for the gate access to the subdivision. I included the minutes in your packets to show you the context of how and why they got there. The Planning Commission heard this application and it was denied, and then it came to the board and it was approved with the gate and also in lieu of curb and gutter, 30-foot wide road with a bike path. And so the condition of the gate is the item of discussion tonight, and the legality of the gate. And we've reached out to Stephen, who's done the research, and the fire marshal's office, and we've talked to Chief, and we're all of the same opinion that the gate, as currently shown, is not legal. So that's what I know. The Chief's here, and available for questions. I'm available for questions as well.
Any questions for Austin, the city attorney, the fire chief on this topic?
What's the position on the 24-hour access gate?
I talked to Chief about that today. Our feeling is that would be legal. I don't know about the future access of the maintenance of it, how exactly that'll be all worked out. But if it's access 24 hours opening for everybody that pulls up to it, then that would be publicly accessible.
Does that need some type of amendment tonight to get that to?
More clarification than anything, and then the applicant is here tonight to kind of address the developer side of things too, because there's a lot of folks involved in this.
So with the 24-hour, I mean, could we designate the responsibility of who would maintain the gate? Is that something the board could?
So the
specify?
gate, as shown here, is to be maintained by the HOA, and so my interpretation of that would be if the public access gate would be maintained by the HOA, which would generate a small piece of common open space for the gate to be located in. Now, the legality of the future access, if it quits working or how, that's probably something we need to at least talk about. But it would be the HOA's maintenance, clearly, because the city does not have a policy on public access gates.
And then and when you say that, you mean the Chapel Grove Plain Unit Development Subdivision would maintain the gate?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Is there anyone here that wanted to speak to that topic? Yes, please come up.
Good evening, Hernando City Council members. I'm Kelly Jacobs. I live at 3985 Robertson Gin Road. My property is in DeSoto County, but 2 of the fence lines of our 20 acres border this subdivision. 5 years ago, we negotiated in good faith with this city council. We went to the planning commission meetings. We had meetings at Cypress Grove with 60 of our community members and elected officials. We were represented by council who negotiated for there to be a gate. Since we have lived there for 30 years, 3 people have died, been hit by cars or deer hit the deer in front of our house. So that's why there is a deer crossing sign there to try and get people to slow down. We told this city council that we were so concerned about the increased traffic, that not just the 77 houses that'll be in there and each having 2 cars, but access to the other 5 Montclair subdivisions to come through there into this speed zone, which I understand they cannot change the speed limit on that area of Robertson Gin because it's protected. So 3 months ago, I served this city council and the planning commission and the fire department with a Freedom of Information Act asking for the letter that allegedly says that it's unlawful to have a gate there. I still have not received this document. Tonight, the chief of police has not come up here to provide testimony to you about whether or not it's illegal. I have spoken to the DeSoto County Fire Department, who said there are other gates here in DeSoto County and they are not illegal. And so I am asking you to please not get rid of our gate. The gate is for the security and the safety of the city of Hernando and in DeSoto County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobs. Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Jodie Plunk. I live at 3325 Scotts Road in the Montclair subdivision. I am on the board of the HOA, and so I do speak for a large proportion of people in Montclair, although not everybody. I have a question. I'm assuming that Chapel Grove is a public road. Is that correct? Are we, therefore, am I understanding correctly that there is some question as to whether we can actually deny and close access to the public on a public road?
That is the question. And
Okay.
right now, the experts on our staff, the city attorney, the fire chief, police chief, and the planning director say it's illegal to gate a public street.
Okay. Our concerns, we would agree with that. Our concerns, living in a subdivision which has dramatically increased, and even in the 5 or 6 years that I've been living there, is that, as we all know, Hernando has grown exponentially with houses. The infrastructure, the school system hasn't been able to keep up with that. And so we live in a part of town that has got much, much busier with the road and infrastructure for a much smaller area of people living there. I drive past Oak Grove. I have a child at Oak Grove. I'm heavily involved at Oak Grove, and I see near misses and a lot of very close call accidents, especially at pickup time and drop-off time, because cars and school traffic coming up from the Montclair area has really, really increased lately. So we would love to have that gate left open, because I think it would allow a different way for cars to exit that area and not put our children and Hernando at risk, as well as other drivers. We currently have had to have a police officer there this year because the traffic has increased so much. The police officer will often park in the middle of the road to protect children and direct traffic. But that means that any car that wants to go past Oak Grove at drop-off or pickup time has to go on the other side of the road, and they can't see what's coming because pickup line is blocking that. We're also doing it annually, twice a year in the dark or dusk times. And so I'm really concerned about that, and I see this as an opportunity to cut that corner out and make that safer for a lot of Hernando residents and children. We are also concerned about emergency access. We've already had emergency services tell us that that back area of Montclair is hard to get to. It's confusing. By giving another area, point of access there, we would hope that people who have called emergency services and had a delayed response because they haven't been able to find the house may have a better chance actually receiving emergency services quicker. My last point would be that this entrance has been open for a while now. People have been using this entrance for a while now, and to my knowledge, there hasn't been an increased problem from that happening. So if it ain't broke. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plott.
Cynthia Coleman, 4036 Robertson Gin Road. While I disagree with her, there is a problem. I live directly across from the entrance and exit to the neighborhood. My property has been rutted up by ATVs, children from the Montclair neighborhood coming over. I have it on video evidence. I've called the sheriff's department numerous times where they've been on our private property. ATV riding and tearing up. I leave the house at 6:30 every morning for work, and there is a constant stream of traffic cutting through. And there's probably, I think, only 2 houses already in maybe Chapel Grove. I'm asking to see the actual documentation. If you're going to tell me that we're going to lose the gate, I want to see it in writing. I want to see where it is illegal, because it was agreed upon, and it was agreed upon, and it was in writing. And I just feel like that this is what happens when we start letting a lot of building going on. Things are agreed upon, and we do it in good faith, and then it's switch and bait. It just changes. So I'm asking to see it in writing. I want to see the legal writing. I talked to the state fire marshal, and he told me that 100 houses is one entrance and one exit. Maybe I got the wrong information. Maybe I got him on a bad day. I don't know. But there are problems. She's wrong. We're seeing a constant flow of traffic, ATV riding, and parents not watching their kids. It's constant cut through, constant cut through. I live right there. I have it on video camera, how many cars are going in and out of the entrance and exits. Not to mention, we've had theft, because we've been asked by people to look at our cameras from things from the construction workers that have been stolen. So there is problems, and we knew it was going to be a problem. That's why 60 people living up and down Robinson Gin got together, and we went and we tried to work out a deal. You can't stop progress. You can't stop building. We understand that. But you can come to agreements where everybody can win. And I feel like it's always the same people losing every single time. It was agreed upon, and it was asked for, and we thought we had it in good faith. And I'm asking you to please, please keep this. Keep this for the people on Robinson Gin Road that met. A lot of them, I'm representing a few of them. I have one that's out of the country and one that's at St. Jude with his grandson, or they would have been here tonight too. So I'm just asking you to kind of hold to it and stick to it. Thank you.
I want to speak, since I think I'm probably the only one on this board when that was done. And I done heard several different comments about how it was done. But just like tonight, and earlier approval here tonight, where the developer and the person that was affected came together and negotiated, and it was resolved. And the same thing was negotiated on tonight, it passed because they came together and negotiated. The same thing happened with this Chapel Grove planned unit development. Yes, it was denied at the Planning Commission. But after the Planning Commission, several, I don't know how many meetings was involved in, because I was not involved in those meetings, was not involved in those negotiations. But they did take place. And so on the night in question that our director has told tonight that on that April the 16th, 2019, a compromise was agreed upon and presented to the Board of Aldermen. when that compromise was agreed upon and presented to the Board of Aldermen, and we could pull the minutes and see who all was present, but I do know planning was there, fire department was there, and police was there.
What about the city attorney?
City attorney was there, engineers were there. Nowhere did anyone say that what was negotiated upon and agreed upon between the affected parties and the developers was illegal. And so a motion was made, and if I'm not mistaken, the minutes will correct me if I'm wrong. I do be wrong, you know, when you have them senior moments, you forget a few things. But if I'm not mistaken, Alderman Bryan made the motion because he represented the majority of that area that was in the city to approve it based upon that criteria. And if the record is still correct, that I second that motion. And that motion passed. And so, there again, no written document again has been presented to say that what we did that night was wrong. And I, as an elected official that had made a good faith decision based on what was presented, feel obligated to stand by what was presented and what was approved by the city. Because if that's the case, what was approved tonight, a year or two from now, somebody come back and say, well, that just ain't the right thing. That 10-foot fence need to be there instead of the 6. That 40-foot need to be there instead of the 20. And so there again, something that has been proved and in the records and in the minutes all those years, it just gone by the wayside. So then I asked, where's the credibility of the city when they in good faith approve something? Not only credibility, but what would the liability be also if this board tonight overturned what another board did? Not only credibility, but what would the liability be? I guess that's a statement, but also is a question for the attorney. But I feel obligated to stand by what the city agreed to based upon the negotiation between the developers and the affected parties. And that was not a political decision. That was a decision that was made because of what, there again, I want to make the record be correct on that no city official was involved in the negotiation. It was between the developers, and I think I'm correct, am I correct? You know, ain't nobody gonna say too much because they scared of the political repercussion, but you also have to be personal enough to state what the record reflects. So, it was not a political decision, and it was the negotiation went on between the residents and the developer. Is the developer here tonight? Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and no elected official, well, it was an elected official that was involved in it, but that was from the county. It was a supervisor.
I don't remember anybody from the city.
I can tell you for a fact it wasn't. My memory is getting a little bit better now. But I want you to, for a fact, because a statement was made that it was political by the citizen, by this board. But it was not a political decision. It was based upon negotiation that took effect by representatives of the affected area along with residents in the county and the developer. And I stand, I feel, continue to be obligated to stand by there. As Alderman Ross has said earlier during her presentation earlier, I speak for the people that were negotiated on that, and I still speak on their behalf today, regardless of how it come out. Thank you, man.
Mr. Pittman, Mrs. Coleman and Alderman Miller brought up the legal question. Do you want to opine on that?
board would like me to, I can do that. I was asked to review the board decision from 2019 in this case, whether or not a gate across a public road is legal, and that answer is very simple. It is not. In any way, shape, or form, other than whether, if in the case that that gate is accessible by the general public 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That option is available to this board. The board can certainly approve that option. I am not going to discuss legal options for either side tonight as far as bringing suit against the city or against the developer. That's not the place for me tonight. I was simply asked to give an opinion of whether or not gating that public road would be legal. Now, there were certain things that had to be considered by this board regardless of what was negotiated between the developer and the homeowner and the residents. They can negotiate anything they would like to negotiate, but if the end result is not legal, then it's not doesn't pass the standards of our law. And so to go further, and I looked at the minutes, Alderman Miller, and I know you have as well, and they're available, April 16, 2019. There was a lot of discussion, and it was discussed in the public meeting what type of gate was going to be installed. The answer from counsel for, I believe, the homeowners, Mr. Reedy, stated it would be a wrought iron gate with a key or siren accessible. Then the fire chief was present, and the minutes reflect that the fire chief stated that they will have to maintain the access road. He's talking about the homeowners association. And I'm going to cite this for the record, read it verbatim from the minutes. Fire chief stated that they will have to maintain the access road, have to have and then to be 24 foot wide. So that was the extent of the fire chief's input at that meeting. In the minutes, what was approved was access to Montclair subdivision for emergency vehicles only with a locked gate in place, and to develop a homeowners association responsible for maintenance of an access road and gate. And the road was going to be 30 foot with a bike access on and asphalt at least 24 foot wide. Okay, there was a vote, no question about it, and it passed. The requirements for the city of Hernando, which adopted the 2012 International Fire Code, the fire code official has to approve any type of installation and maintenance of gates or other barricades across fire apparatus access roads. Further, the gate intended for automatic operation, which as I understood this to be the case, this gate was going to be an automatic, siren operated or emergency accessible by emergency personnel. If that were the case, this board had to approve a gate that would be designed and constructed and installed in full compliance with requirements of the American Society of Testing Materials, section F 2200. That was not done by the board in 2019, and the gate is illegal. That's my opinion, and I welcome any questions from this board or public.
Any questions for the attorney?
Mr. Pittman, and this may be for Austin. So my understanding, when this was initially approved, it was approved as an access road, and now we have a public street.
Correct.
Could you talk to that and where that changed down the road?
Certainly. I mean, the easiest answer to whether or not, I mean, that was the question that the board asked me, is it, can you legally gate a public road? And that, I've already answered that. You cannot. unless
Can you
it's-
do an access road?
Correct.
You can.
You can.
But
But
now, this is no longer an access road because it's been developed as a public street?
Austin would have to speak to that.
Well, it's not developed yet, that's kind of what generated this whole conversation. And so the second phase is physically paved, it's not platted. And so over 30 lots, when we reached out to the fire chief to say, hey, what does the gate need to look like? You recognize it was over 30 lots, which requires 2 public ways in and out. And I'll probably need to let Chief talk more about that, but that's what's generated this second way in and out. And I think the confusion of in 2019 and now was, is that second way in and out allowed to be a small road with a gate on it, or does it have to be public access? I don't want to speak for Chief on the public access, but he said 30 lots is 2 ways in and out, which is 2 public ways in and out.
I want to speak to Cynthia Coleman's comment from the discussion with maybe the county or state fire officials with regard to the 100 units. That's 100 multifamily units. But for single-family units, anything over 30 requires 2 access. So I just want to make sure that was clear for the record, because that was stated.
Chief, you've been, it's been noted that you've needed to speak on this just now, so would you come forward and talk about that since we're talking about the access for number of homes?
Talking about the access, anything over 30 houses have to have 2 ways in and out. Obviously, this neighborhood was approved for 71 or 77 lots, so they've got to have 2 ways in and out. As far as the gate, where you had mentioned by the code, I can approve this and that. The very next sentence of that code says he cannot approve to do any gate, blockade, or anything on a public road. The very next sentence. So if it's a public road, I can't even do it. I can't override it.
I guess the $1,000 question here is this an access road or is it a public road, I guess? What is our city's position on that?
Well, let's ask what was the initial plan? What was the initial plan in 2019? Access or public? Because we were told access.
Stephen, would you speak to that?
Well, I think Austin needs.
Marshall, I think
Austin should speak, and the board would have to speak on whether or not, I mean, I think the plan was for that to be an access, I mean, to be a public road connecting the 2 neighborhoods. You know, but that's not the only $1,000 question. The other answer to whether or not it's legal is it's not, because there's been no specification of this for the gate to be built in compliance. And so even the developer, I mean, if he had, he can't just build any kind of gate, which was discussed in the meeting, only wrought iron, no other specifications. So this board approved a gate that was not legal. That part is unquestionable. The part whether or not this is a public road, it's in the middle.
To answer your question directly, it's very unclear. The motion says an access road to Montclair subdivision with emergency vehicles only with a locked gate, and developed an HOA responsible for maintenance of road and gate with sub-covenants being submitted as part of the PUD approval. And so honestly, that's what we're looking for clarification on, because if there, it's very clear that you have to ways, two ways in and out. And the biggest question is the second way in and out, in my mind, the worst possible case scenario is HOA maintenance. Technically, that's going to be a separate parcel. It's going to be a parcel of common open space, which the city does not control access to. We're trusting an HOA for access, but we don't control it. And I think our opinion is to guarantee two ways in and out, whether it's with the road, with a gate or no gate, it would be public access. Honestly, I think the intent when the hearing came out was to prohibit access. I think we can all agree on that in 2019, that the second way in and out was gated and private to prohibit things from coming other than fire trucks. And I don't think the code speaks to that.
Just to quote my good friend, Alderman Miller, in the minutes, he says, so it's a private access road maintained by the HOA. George already answers yes.
Is that in the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess my question for Mr. Pittman is, if we approve this tonight with clarification that it's an access road that meets the specifications of the 2000 whatever code, would that justify an elbow gate?
Ask the question again, Alderman Wicker.
So if we declare that, to make it very clear, that that's an access road, right? And then we say that road has to be built to the, well, I think you said the 23, the gate, I'm scared, the 2003, whatever code you quoted there. Would that be enough specificity to allow for that road to be gated?
If it was approved by our fire code official, yes.
And he has the discretion to do that, I think is what Mr. Marshall said just a second ago.
The action in 2019 was illegal.
Vague.
Correct. No specifications were made in the minutes. And so it could not be a fire marshal approval because you can't approve it.
Exactly.
You have to have a minimum of that, and then it has to be approved. And the homeowner association maintenance of that would be a consideration and possible basis for not approving it.
Well, the board can, but I'm saying if the board made that action, you think that's legally justifiable? In your
Right, but
opinion?
it's still left up to the
Sure.
discretion of the fire official, because, again,
The code, the code.
go to the specifications of the ASTM F-2200 and the 2012 fire regulations. That's adopted by the city of Hernando. There's, as I understand it, talking with Chief Berry, still a legitimate concern. There was a maintenance of that second access, which is absolutely required for single-family dwellings more than 30. That answers the question.
If you did the gate, they'd have to have another access.
Is that
If the gate was there, would they have to have another access road, or?
I mean, no, the gate built
Make it a public road if it goes into Montclair.
yes, sir. Let me finish that, quick, and I'll answer the question.
Yeah, I'll call you up in just a second. Yeah.
Please don't give the answer. To answer your question, Alderman Robinson and Mr. Alderman Wicker, if the gate is built to specifications as I have said, which is required by law and our ordinances, then it's left to the fire official to approve or not approve. And that, those are and the consideration would also be who maintains and assures that the gate is operable in the event of an emergency. That is the overriding concern of the fire marshal has been, or the fire chief has been from day one. He wants to make sure that if an emergency happens, that he can save lives if necessary. So if you have two access, one meets the requirements that I have stated, and it is approved by the fire marshal.
Would you like to come up and speak?
The question is, an access road or public road? And it's gotta have two ways to get in and out, right? The access would be into Montclair. If it's not accessible to Montclair, then they gotta have another exit, right?
I don't think that's true.
But if it's access to Montclair, it's a public road.
I think that the fire marshal has the discretion to allow for just one entrance if he wants to.
But I think the question you're posing is the question everyone's asking right now and trying to
Yeah.
figure out.
Gotta have two entrances.
But, I mean, Natalie should know, they just opened up Ivy Lane. You get a lot of traffic in front of your house, right? From Ivy Lane now, they opened it up about a month ago.
I'm not, my house isn't directly across from there, so.
Well, your dad or John, Adam,
Mhm.
and then yours. So Ivy Lane comes right there in front of all y'all's house. There's a lot of traffic right there. I live on Scott Road, and man, it has a lot of traffic over there. We need that access to Robinson Gym to relieve some of that traffic. I mean, it's ridiculous over there. We got a lot of houses. But if they want to say it's an access road, then they need another access. They don't need to come into Montclair to make our traffic worse. They need to go out, back out on Robinson Gym.
Thank you.
Make a big safety, deal right there in front of the school too.
I want to respond. I think Alderman Wicker
Yeah, correct me if I'm
made
wrong.
a statement. I just want to make sure we're clear. Fire chief, marshal, or any other fire official cannot approve only one access to a subdivision that has more than 30 homes, unless fire sprinklers are installed in those homes. That has not been required. And so I stand by my legal opinion, as I've stated. The consideration of whether or not this is a public road is not yet. When it becomes a public road, you cannot have a gate unless it's accessible 24/7. Short of that, if you're not going to have it, if you're going to not be a public road and be an access road, you have to meet, this board has to specifically vote and approve that the gate will be built to specifications, with lawful specifications, and then the fire marshal still has to approve the access.
So he could shoot it down and then the gates
That's
gotta be
correct.
left open.
So
That's correct.
you and I
And
had
that's
the
an
exact
expense.
same question when this kind of all started. We have a public subdivision with over 30 lots in it, public roads. Everyone, I'm clear on that. Then we have Montclair, well over 30 homes and public roads. Can we legally make a piece of road private and gate it to prohibit access between the public roads? That's been my question from the very beginning. And
I guess I got a question about.
Could you come up, please, up front, please? Yes, sir.
I live in Montclair as well, and I'm on in the phase one. And Alderman Miller, to your point, y'all agreed on something in 2019. Now we're hearing about the legal side of things. Why do we not go by the legal instead of you guys deciding what we should do? If it's legal and you cannot have a gate on a road, why are you guys gonna vote on that? I mean, legal's legal. To your point, you voted on something, but if it's not legal, then you don't have a leg to stand on. So I agree with everybody about the traffic, the safety issues and all that. But if you got a public road and you gotta have two ways in and out of a subdivision, why are we not going with the legality side of things instead of you guys voting on what we should do?
Well, I think there's two legal options here. I think one option is to not have a gate, and that's legal. And the other option is to have a 24/7 gate, which is also legal.
I'm
So-
fine with that.
So those are I think that's what we're talking about here. And then the
If there's a
third
gate-
option is,
If there's a gate
What's our third option?
24/7, I don't know why they want a gate, because then anybody can come in and out.
well, it slows down traffic so that, I mean, most people won't cut through if they're gonna have to come to a complete stop to let a gate open and then go through.
Maybe not, but I guess my point, which I'm fine with that, if they have a gate that we can access 24/7, anybody can go through. Because to his point, the traffic in our neighborhood now, is horrendous. And if you let, do what? It is, because I live right on the corner of Scott and Fieldstone, and it's terrible. The traffic going through there, I don't want speed bumps in our neighborhood, but our kids, I mean, they're out playing, and you've got these cars going through the neighborhood, you know, and they were talking about the ATVs and all going through the neighborhood. You know, then our police officers need to stop the ATVs going through the neighborhood, you know, because that's not gonna stop. I mean, you see the ATVs all around. So, I mean, I guess I just don't like to see us make something and then 2 years later we say, well, we agreed to this, but if it was illegal, it doesn't matter.
Let me make one point here, and the minutes have reflected that private and access. The minutes reflect access road. An access road, that is legal. The road has not been designated as a public road. That's the discrepancy. So what we did then was not illegal, because the minutes will reflect that it was what? It reflect.
You approved the private access road, but the private access road, the private access road was fine. The gate did not meet.
What I'm talking about, the gate is a, how will it be, construction.
Can I address
So-
the board again?
No, I was just answering what he said there, to that point.
I want to address Alderman Lynch's summation as well. There are three options, real simple. No gate, 24/7 access gate, a legal gate, which was not approved legally the first time. And I've stated why. It's my understanding that more than likely, this would have been, and it's not it has not been dedicated as a public road yet. That causes all the confusion. So if it were, then you can't have,
Question.
if it were, you cannot even have the fire maintenance gate, okay?
So if it is a 24-hour gate, and let's say the gate breaks down, who's liable if there's an issue in one of the subdivisions? The city?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Legal. That's what he said, well, no,
Yeah, we've discussed that in executive session, but what is 100% clear, that is if the gate had been built per the board approval and something happened, the city would be responsible. Okay? Now, the homeowner association takes responsibility for it. Therein lies the gray area that the chief is concerned about, because something could happen. So the question there in my mind, and I'm speaking for Chief Berry, is the safety of citizens. Because you don't want something to happen, and you don't ever know what's going to happen. And so that's the reason that, those are the considerations for this board. And that's the reason it's back before the board, because of the gray areas then and still now. And so trying to make an informed decision, but there are three options. No gate, 24/7 access, or a gate that meets the requirements I've stated.
Any other discussion from the board or questions? Yes, would you come up, please?
Kelly Jacobs again. I was wondering, who approved the public access road? Because that seems to be where we're stuck tonight, is that when we negotiated with the city of Hernando, it was an access road, and tonight you're talking about the illegality of the gate on a public road. So who approved the public road? If I misspoke earlier, that's what I meant to say. Who approved it? Because I have called the Planning Commission. I've been to a couple of their meetings. Usually There's a big red sign posted. There's been no red sign posted since 5 years ago to let the residents know that the access road has changed. So when did a public road get approved? Because that violates our agreement. So do you have an answer for that?
Austin, I'll let you
I can. So
speak to
it
that.
hasn't been. That's kind of what's generated the questions tonight. And so when the second phase of the subdivision is platted, we can appropriately designate that strip correctly to satisfy the board's order. And so whether that be a 30-foot wide and 80-foot long piece of common open space that the HOA is to maintain with a gate, that is an option apparently. Or if it's a public access gate, that would create public right-of-way, but the HOA would maintain pieces of where the gate hardware would be. And so to answer your question directly, who approved it, that's what we're trying to kind of do tonight, is how to approve the road to satisfy the board's wishes.
I didn't see that in the agenda, that tonight was an approval from a access road to a public road. Is that what you're looking for then tonight?
Jacob, I think we're looking for clarification on the whole issue. This issue's
Right.
been hanging out for a while, so we're trying to address it, so.
That's
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Theoretically, the gate's legal, nothing would change, common open space is established, and that's it. But I think it's much more complicated to satisfy the board's wishes. In 30 years, when the gate's there, who maintains what exactly, and how that piece of land where the fire trucks would cross, who owns it? Is it a taxable parcel, or is it right of way that the city maintains? And, you know, I think what really generated the question, Stephen and the fire marshal and everything in the beginning, and the core of the issue was that you cannot gate a public road, and I think everyone's clear on that. And I think what the compromise was to create a common open space and gate that, but what that does is de facto gate two public roads. And whatever we do, I want to make sure I'm clear with the board that we're not going to just go behind the scenes and operate and just kind of do what we want to do, because the board order says what it says, and that's why this tough conversation's happening tonight. But to Alderman Wicker's original question of can you do an access road, my thought process going into this was, if you have a public subdivision and a public subdivision that requires two ways in and out, can you just create a small piece to gate? Does that get around the rule? And I was told no. So that's kind of where I got tonight. So I hope that answers everybody's questions about kind of why we're here. Is that plat that we have in our office that's to be recorded, is we need to make sure that the strip of land that this gate's going on is appropriately labeled. And so that's, to your question about why and how the road has been approved, that's what we're trying to get clear. So.
And I just want to make one more comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just to leave this with everyone. Look, you know, Montclair has two ways in and out. In a perfect world, what we would have wanted, the 60 residents up and down Robinson Gin who have lived in that rural community for 25, 30, 40 years, in a perfect world, what we would have wanted was Chapel Grove not to connect to anything, right? But we couldn't get that. So we was like, okay, what can we compromise on? What can we all live with? Because we live up and down that road. We know the traffic that's up and down that road. We drive that road every day. We do not want traffic dumping out on that road. We do not want it to be a cut through. I'm sorry for the Montclair residents, but we don't want it. We already have problems. I've already seen problems. And we just don't want it. And in a perfect world, we would love for that big neighborhood not to get any bigger. Okay, they're already saying they live too far back there and it's so far that they want to cut through. I mean, that's a problem. Okay, if it's getting that big, why do we need to build more? Why do we have to connect? That would be my perfect world, that we don't connect. But we don't live in worlds like that. We have to compromise. You're not going to stop growth. We know that. We see our town growing. But what can we all live with? What can we gain? You know, as business owners and as residents, we have to just kind of compromise. I'm going to urge you to keep some type of gate so we can limit the cut through. And I'm not just speaking for myself. I'm speaking for the 60 residents that were at that meeting and that live up and down Robinson Gin, from all the way from the Oak Grove all the way down. We had them all the way down to Clifton Road. attend that meeting because nobody wants to see that road get any busier. We do not want to be a cut through. My driveway ends right at the entrance of the neighborhood. We do not want to be a cut through.
Thank you, Ms. Coble.
We don't either. We don't either. So we don't necessarily want them cutting through ours. So it's a two-way street. I don't disagree with what she's saying, but you can't have it both ways.
Okay.
You can't cut through ours and not expect us to be able to use yours if it's convenient for us. So just as inconvenient as it is for them.
Let's try to limit our comments to the podium if we can. Yeah.
Well, you get my point.
Yes, sir.
You know.
I mean, I've had this come up in my ward because we've got a county subdivision, Bailey Meadows, that is set right in between two city subdivisions, Jefferson and St. Ives, off of Jaybird. They wanted to gate off their access roads. And I'm like, you can't gate a city street. And because of the amount of houses in the county neighborhood, we've got a county neighborhood sitting right in the center between two city neighborhoods. And they've got access roads in all the neighborhoods. And they're like, we don't want Bailey Meadows coming into our neighborhood. We don't want, people cutting through. Well, I mean, I just said it's illegal. We cannot block that city street. We cannot put a gate up. Right now, while construction's being done, they've got some barriers there on the Jefferson side, but everything's wide open because of the guidelines and the laws on the amount of houses and that you need 2 entrances and exits. So I know this is a tough decision, but the biggest part of it was just nothing was really clarified because the word was access road and public road. And so when we're getting into clarifying what's right and what's wrong, public roads cannot be blocked by any means. Access road, which is in the minutes, this is a tough decision, but I mean, the law is the law when it comes to public roads and gating them and closing them off. So, I mean, I'd love to find a compromise to make it work for everybody.
I mean, I've been told something similar with the Delta Landing PUD that we have going in across from the new Hernando High School. The neighbors to the north in the Nesbitt area requested something similar where there would just be, fire access for, because there's, several hundred homes that are going in there. They want, access to the north to get to Pleasant Hill Road. And I was told we couldn't do a gate there. So I've, certainly seen that same principle applied. But if we go, down into county streets and you go down Holly Springs Road long enough, anybody that's lived here for very long knows that there used to be gates on 2 different sides of Dairy Barn Road that they would close and lock. And the reason why was because it would flood and it was a public safety concern. So there has to be some amount of oversight for public safety issues to allow for, some gates to be constructed in some way, and that oversight falls with the municipality or the government entity. So I think that if we can come to a compromise, if it's a 24/7 deal, that seems to be a fairly reasonable option that would allow people to come and go, but would maybe just deter some of that traffic and maybe lower the traffic count, then that would seem like a reasonable option to me. I certainly understand what our city attorney has said and what our planner has said. Appreciate the people who have showed up tonight, and that's where I sit on it.
Unfortunately, this conversation was not had in 2019. It was had now. So, but I think it sounds like that there's a good compromise to put a 24-hour access gate there. My question would be, how do we mandate that the HOA is responsible for paying the cost of that? Is that something we can do, Mr. Pittman?
Yes, you did it last time.
Well, I would like to make a motion to require that road be a 24-hour access date and require the Chapel Grove HOA to provide maintenance on that gate. And is there a way to have the city inspect that every 6 months or something like that?
I feel like we could do that. Yeah, although we don't own the gate, that would be the tough part for us to, we could just make sure it's operational.
Yeah.
And to make sure I catch it correctly on the plat, the actual road, is that proposed to be an HOA parcel, or is that proposed to be a city street with a gate?
I think it's gonna have to be public access, I believe, right, Mr. Pittman?
Well, it can be either. I mean, if you're going to make it a 24/7 access, I think you would declare that to be a public city street. So,
If it were not a public street, then we wouldn't be able to pave that section.
And my question again, on if the gate didn't work, who's liable, the HOA or the city?
I've already told you my
And
position on that.
I just wanted that for the
Robinson.
record. Yeah.
And so, we discussed this, before, and, but regardless of, to answer your question, if the board approved an access road that was not a city street, the fire marshal still has to approve it. And so the fire marshal, I don't think I certainly don't think it's inappropriate or illegal to have the fire marshal continue his inspections of a gate such as that, to make sure it's built to specifications. So, either way, if you make it a public road with a 24/7 access, then certainly the fire marshal will inspect it. If you make it an access road with a ASTM F2200 built to those specifications, the fire marshal will still have to approve it and continue his approval. I mean, if the fire marshal goes out there 5 years from now and if it's not working, then he can certainly say, hey, you got to keep this gate open. I mean, it's under his purview per our adopted ordinances.
So if at any point in time the gate is inoperable and no one is going to take the responsibility of fixing it, the fire marshal can say it has to stay open then?
That's my opinion.
I just want that to be on the record.
That clarified, Austin, are you clear, I guess, as mud?
Yeah.
Would you
I
restate
think
your
we
motion,
still gotta
Alderman
decide
Wicker?
about it being public road or.
I have no problem with being public road, but I just want to know that my intention is to have a gate, 24-hour access on that road. So when somebody comes back and looks at these minutes, they understand my intention is in the minutes.
Yes, sir, please, since you represent the development.
Yeah, guess y'all was wondering when I was gonna come up here. I'm not gonna be brief. I spoke to the developer today, and he's willing to do either way. We agreed to putting the gate in. He's not opposed to that. I would request, though, that if we do put it in, we leave it a public street. Wasn't approved that way, but we built it as such, and it meets all the requirements of a public road. And that way, he puts a gate in, that's really all he's gonna be responsible for. is that-
You're worried about the maintenance of the road at some point?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Yes, it wouldn't make sense to build a full-width public road and not leave it public. Since it serves no
Like
purpose.
two small pieces of common open space where the gate hardware would be located.
Yes, yeah, we're agreeable to that. That's all I had, unless you had questions of me.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have questions?
That's my motion, Mayor.
Okay.
Is everybody clear?
There is a motion, is there a second?
Second.
I think Alderman Piper got the second on that. We'll have a roll call vote.
Alderman Wicker.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ross.
Aye.
Alderman Piper.
Aye.
Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderwoman Lynch.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Robinson.
The motion passes. Okay, thank you, and thank you all for clarifying.
Everybody's mad, that means a good compromise, I think.
We will move on to item 31, which is the discussion of additional streets to be paved in this budget year. Y'all approved a list prior to, you have that list there, and I highlighted the ones that have actually been finished. I think that's probably the most streets we have ever paved in a fall paving. The other ones y'all have already approved, so we'll continue working on them. So if y'all could look at the next list that Joe Frank has provided with his estimates on some streets that need paving and some estimated prices next to them.
Have we got our second chunk of money in January yet for the, whatever that fund is, or whatever the?
I don't think we've gotten that money, but our property tax check came in,
Okay.
so but we're not spending the money out of there, we'll be spending it out of the other fund. But it should be coming soon, just hadn't hit the account. Joe Frank, while you're talking, I'll check that account and make sure.
Is
Okay.
real quick, is the McInville, that's part of this year's street budget, right? The, over by the school?
Actually, we're waiting on the school to finish, and we feel certain there are going to be cost overruns from our engineers, so we are talking to people about finding additional funding, so it will not be paved this year. We'll hold that money till the next year.
But was that part of our, wasn't it like 3.3 million? Was that part of that?
Yes, that money we'll
Okay.
just not spend this year, but we have to hold on to it because we're going to
Right,
have it for next year.
okay, that's what, yeah.
McInville, Rob High
And
School.
Mr. Joe Fry, are we still intending to do the roundabout at Holly Springs?
Yes.
And McInville this year?
That's over on your other list.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're still doing it.
He actually laid a preliminary plan on my desk.
There you go,
2
look
weeks
at you.
ago.
Okay, so this is, some streets people turned into me, last couple of months, and then I maybe added one or two on here as I went over the city, looking at streets.
Joe, let me ask you one question before we get too far in this. Did you refer any to the booklet that we had on streets? Did you refer to that booklet in to see where these streets might fall into versus other streets that we had deemed more, how was that, in worse condition than these? Not saying that these streets are not bad, but we had already prioritized, even though it's a few years old, and if they were bad a few years ago, you know what they are now. At least I would think so. They didn't get no better. So my point is this. Even though they was turned into by the board, was they looked at in relation to the study that we had done and see was in the other streets more deemed worse to be done than these? And that's my question.
Okay, my answer is yes. That's why I added a couple on here. But I think we've pretty well taken, the streets were ranked,
Right.
with a number. And I think we've pretty well taken care of the ones that were listed at that time for overlays. Of course, that's been years ago, and the streets are changing, they start getting worse. But that's one reason we did Brody Road as a microseal, because it was listed as a type road that was a microseal type surface that would fit that particular road. But none of these would fit the microseal type sealing. Now, there may be others that would if we want to spend money like that, but.
That was my point. Is any others that we could micro seal to save us in next year's budget than have to totally do the road if we taking any one of these streets now and put that money into sealing those other roads so they won't get to the point of a total overlay? That's my question.
Okay.
It may not be, it's not one on this one, but I know near Brody Road, Wooten Road that goes back there, that's in Nesbit as well, I think would be one that's similar to that would benefit from that same
What's the name of that
process.
one?
Wooten.
What'd you say? Wooten?
You inspected Wooten the other day.
I looked at Wooten.
Yeah, we were asking.
It may not be in bad enough shape right now, but
Yeah. It's not that bad a shape, but that is the next thing to do to that road is a microseal.
That's my main, all my type is, really, we talking about the same thing.
we're sharing a brain. So we're sharing a brain right now.
At this point, we all need to share.
I need all the shit I need.
You said that.
But that's what I'm referring to, is that I want to make sure that we can kind of stop the bleeding on some of these roads before we get to the point in this price range. Now, that's all.
We-
You asked my question.
I understand what you're talking about, and we're trying to look, I mean, that's how come we captured Brody Road when the county had that contract, and we got a good deal on it, and took care of that situation, because it was, we were gonna have to overlay it in a couple of years if we didn't do something to it this past year.
I guess the question at hand is we have, what, 500 and something $1,000 left, and there's like quite more than that left. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. This is a recommended list of streets for y'all to choose from and rank, and we got about 550 left in the budget to pick out of here.
Well, you know, after this ice and all the water, it's probably making some of these streets, like Alderman Miller said, worse than they were coming into this. So we might want to just kind of revisit it and just see what happens. And I mean, see which roads have just lifted up. Because I've seen some in my area that none of them are on this list, but they might just need like cut out sections and fixed. But yeah, some of them are falling apart just from all this ice that's all falling out now.
Yeah,
So
freezing and
loosened up.
thawing is gonna change, and more traffic on it.
Yeah, and then the
Constantly.
rain, I mean, it's just, I don't know.
Like
It's done some damage.
Terra Drive's on here. I mean, that's such a large road. We can break that up over a couple years, maybe 3 years. I mean, that's.
And then we got the streets like Southern, and Lee can tell you about Southern. Southern washed out, I mean, the whole road caved into the middle. And there's nowhere on here to be done. But I mean, when I'm talking about washed out, they had to dig down how many feet? And so we're straight down Southern Street is just like a valley. And the only thing they did, we done throw the asphalt in it to just kind of smooth it, but it's
sunk
gonna
some
be a
more?
total repair.
Is it sunk more?
Yeah. It's gotta be redone.
This is pretty recent.
Oh.
If it needs to be done, let's do it.
Well, the other one is the other part of College from, right?
Down in front of the Gale Center.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, that's gonna be used as a cut through when the roundabout at 51 and Oak Grove is being used.
I'm glad we didn't fix it when we fixed the other part of College, 'cause we just dug it back up.
Just now dug it up.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot out, there's not many big ticket items on here that, you know,
Well, another
Mount
thing,
Pleasant, Mac, and Bahia is a big one.
what are you looking like on this roundabout at McInville and Holly Springs on time line?
This summer.
All right, you know, everybody's gonna cut through, Lee Summit on Summit Drive. Monteith, which has already been done, that street's in good shape, but Summit Drive's not too spiffy in some areas. That's something that we might just want to kind of keep on the back burner and look at it, because it's going to be a cut through, and we're going to have all kinds of complaints with the added traffic going through, because they're going to have to miss that corner, if that's going to be summer. I just wanted to know a timeline about when you think we'll start on that.
I think I should be able to do it without stopping traffic.
Okay.
I'm gonna do it in parts.
That's great.
Like 2 different parts.
That'll be.
But
that's
I'm sure
perfect.
people are gonna, want to cut through to.
Yeah, some
when they
people are
see
they're gonna cut through
people out there
Summit Drive.
working.
They're gonna cut through Summit Drive, so.
I know that Weatherby needs, it got crack sealed about the same time as Notting
Crack
Hill
sealed.
did. Notting Hill's gotten a lot of overlay, but Weatherby has not, and I feel like they were sort of similar in, they're not on this list, but it needs to be on I don't know, I haven't looked at all these streets specifically. They may be in worse shape, but if Weatherby could be on the next list, that would be good.
Next year.
Sure.
Grove Park as well.
And this is, Mayor, I asked that you and Joe would, to see how much it costs us to get that study done again. We know that we might can find somebody else to do it because,
You referenced the Civil Link study they did.
yeah,
back in like
I mean,
2017
we
or
need,
something.
we need that document because our opinion, and I'm not saying that everybody don't have a great opinion, but we need that neutral body to give us some guidelines.
I don't disagree.
I agree, but I think we can't use the 2017
But
document.
no, I said update.
We about
I said-
finished it, though.
Yeah.
There-
I said update, that's what I'm saying, I said updated. That's what I'm saying, updated, just like anything else need to be updated.
Could we use those funds from the, I keep forgetting the Modernization Act. or whatever.
Modernization
Could we
Act.
use those funds to do us that study with that?
I will find out.
Yeah, I mean,
I will
I'm
find
agreeing with
out.
you, it need to be updated.
You know, when we did this study, we didn't have the benefit of having the Modernization Act funds. Now that we do, because, you know, they did the study, and then we didn't have the money to pave the roads, and then the study got outdated, and now we're trying to catch up. So, yeah, it would
Sounds
be
like to
good.
me, but Joe Franklin, most of those critical roads have been addressed in that study. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Joe?
We've taken care of the high priority overlay. But, you know, most of these roads on here, they're like 15 to 20-year-old roads, never
That's how Terra Drive,
Things have
never
never
been paved through, so it's.
been done to them.
2001, that subdivision was built.
But I do like the idea of us
But
having
we
that
still need to
document.
revisit,
I
and
agree
get
with
that
that,
document, that's what I'm saying.
And then when we get calls to the city, we can say, we have this document, and here's what year your streets plan to be paved.
Yeah, and we have some history, a couple of years of history now of how much money we've gotten every year, and we can do a pretty good timeline
That's
of
right.
when we could meet all the
You're getting
needs.
pretty good.
And I had checked with Civil Link 2 years ago, and I can't remember what price they gave us, but I will check with them again, because that seems to be something they're good at doing. But I'll work with Joe Frank and Lee to get some other estimates as well from other companies. I think it'd be good for us to have a document like that again.
And y'all are keeping some type of spreadsheet when we do pave streets, so we can
Yes.
reference if there's, somebody ask about the street, well, we paved in 2017 or whatever. That's good information to have, too.
Y'all want to do anything on this tonight?
Could
Choose a
y'all-
few, or?
Could you, with the system that you got, could you, put all that data into your system and pull it up like that?
Possible, I'll check on that.
But same thing with Alderman Wilkerson, that, we got the tool, we just not to adjust it, you know, put it into.
Well, that way we could start seeing how long these roads are lasting, and that way we can kind of budget, so maybe hit them before.
We can
they-
narrow it down to a certain.
As we get there, you know.
Yes, sir. You probably could even color code it on the map.
Right.
Keep buying from Amazon, we're gonna have more money, so tell them to keep buying from Amazon.
I mean, do you want to ride over some of these roads in the next 2 weeks and look at them, or?
Y'all want to do that? Just take this list and look at it a little longer, and we'll come back to it in a couple of weeks?
You've got till February, March, on the paving.
Yeah, we're not going to be paving right now anyway. Okay? Well, we'll just, y'all want to make a motion, to table this item till the next meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We have tabled it to the next meeting. We will move on to the next agenda item, which is to adjourn.
Second.
You're doing good.
All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no.
You're right on time.
We are adjourned.